For more than 60 years, Robert Duvall carried a story he rarely spoke about, not because he forgot it, not because it lost its meaning, but because some moments in life are so formative, so deeply personal, that speaking them aloud feels almost sacred. For decades, audiences knew Robert Duvall as one of the greatest actors of his generation, a man of quiet intensity, a master of restraint, an artist who could say more with a glance than others could, with a page of dialogue. But few knew how that philosophy was born. Few knew that it began not with applause, not with awards, but with a silent presence on a film set in 1962, standing across from a towering figure of moral authority, Gregory Peck. This was the moment that launched Duvall's film career, and the moment that quietly shaped the man he would become. Before the Oscars, before The Godfather, before Apocalypse Now. There was a young stage actor, uncertain, observant, absorbing everything around him, and a veteran star who didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. Robert Duvall was born on January 5th, 1931, in San Diego, California, into a family defined by discipline and structure. His father was a career Army officer, a man who believed in order, responsibility, and restraint. His mother, by contrast, nurtured his creative instincts, quietly encouraging his early interest in the arts. That balance between control and emotion would later become the foundation of Duvall's acting style. From an early age, he showed a rare emotional intelligence, an ability to observe people, to understand what they felt without needing them to explain it. Acting, for him, was never about a spectacle. It was about truth. And yet his journey into the craft was anything but sudden. It was deliberate, slow, painstaking. Every choice he made was about learning how to listen, how to wait, how to be present. Long before Hollywood took notice, Duvall immersed himself in theater at the University of Texas at Austin, sharpening his skills with discipline and focus. Later, at New York's Neighborhood Playhouse, he trained under the Stanislavski method, a school that demanded emotional honesty and psychological depth. This training taught him something that would stay with him for life. Characters are not symbols. They are human beings, full of contradictions, silence, and restraint. At the time, Robert Duvall didn't know that this philosophy would soon be tested in the most unexpected way, on a set where words mattered less than presence, on a film that would become a cultural landmark, and beside a man whose quiet strength would leave an indelible mark on his soul. That film was To Kill a Mockingbird, and that man was Gregory Peck. When Robert Duvall first stepped onto the set of To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, he felt as if he had crossed an invisible line. This wasn't just another job. This wasn't just another role. It was a different world. At that moment, Duvall was still a young actor shaped by the stage. He had earned respect through off-Broadway productions and years of disciplined training. But film was a different language entirely. The cameras were unforgiving. The silence between lines carried weight, and the expectations were enormous. To Kill a Mockingbird was not just a film adaptation. It was a cultural event in the making. America was at a crossroads. Racial tensions were raw. The story carried moral weight that went far beyond entertainment. And at the center of it all stood Gregory Peck. Tall, calm, unshakable, Robert Duvall would later recall that seeing Peck for the first time was intimidating in a way he had never experienced before. Peck didn't dominate the room by force or ego. He commanded it through stillness. As Atticus Finch, Peck wasn't acting in the conventional sense. He was embodying something deeper, a moral backbone that seemed to exist even when the camera stopped rolling. Duvall watched him closely. He noticed how Peck never rushed a moment, how he listened more than he spoke, how his presence alone seemed to steady everyone around him. For a young actor trying to find his footing in film, this was a revelation. Robert Duvall's role as Boo Radley was quiet, mysterious, almost entirely silent. Few lines, barely any words at all. Yet in that silence, Duvall felt something profound happening. Despite their difference in status, Peck took the time to acknowledge him. He didn't overlook the young actor with the smallest role. He didn't treat him as invisible. According to Duvall, Peck walked over, introduced himself, and made sure he felt like he belonged. "I barely had any lines," Duvall would later say. "I barely had any words, but he came over and treated me like I mattered." That simple gesture stayed with him. In an industry known for hierarchy and ego, Gregory Peck chose respect. On that set, Peck wasn't just the lead actor. He became a kind of moral compass. He understood the responsibility of Harper Lee's story, especially in the early 1960s. He carried the weight of the narrative as if it were a duty, not a performance. Long hours, heavy themes, enormous pressure. Yet Peck never appeared rattled. While other actors paced or fidgeted, Peck stood still, focused, grounded. At first, it intimidated Duvall, but slowly he realized that this calm came from deep understanding. Gregory Peck didn't need to prove anything, he simply was. And without realizing it, Robert Duvall was absorbing a lesson that would quietly define his entire career. Sometimes, the most powerful acting happens in a silence. As the days of filming passed, Robert Duvall began to understand that Gregory Peck was teaching him something far more valuable than technique. It wasn't done through lectures. There were no long speeches, no dramatic demonstrations. It happened quietly, almost invisibly. The set of To Kill a Mockingbird was intense. The themes were heavy. The responsibility was enormous. Every day carried the weight of history, justice, and moral courage. And through it all, Gregory Peck remained unshaken. Duvall noticed something unusual. Peck never tried to dominate a scene. He never forced emotion. He trusted stillness. One day, Peck offered Duvall a piece of advice so simple it almost sounded insignificant. "You don't have to say much for people to hear you." For a young actor playing Boo Radley, a character defined almost entirely by silence, those words landed with extraordinary force. Duvall realized that acting wasn't about filling a space with dialogue. It was about presence, about intention, about letting the audience lean in. That single sentence became a guiding principle. From that moment on, Duvall began to see silence differently. He understood that restraint could be more powerful than volume, that nuance could carry more weight than the spectacle. Gregory Peck didn't just perform Atticus Finch, he lived him. Even when the cameras weren't rolling, Peck carried himself with the same quiet integrity. There was no arrogance, no ego. He took the work seriously, but never himself. For Duvall, this was transformative. It validated everything his training had taught him about emotional truth. It confirmed that realism didn't need exaggeration. Years later, audiences would praise Duvall for his understated intensity, for his ability to convey menace, vulnerability, and humanity without raising his voice. Few realized that this approach was born decades earlier on a set where silence spoke louder than words. in the presence of a man who understood the power of restraint. Gregory Peck became, in Duvall's mind, the embodiment of the old-school gentleman actor, a professional, a moral anchor. Even long after the film wrapped, that influence never faded. The liaison followed Duvall through every role, every performance, every choice. It shaped the actor he would become. After To Kill a Mockingbird, Robert Duvall did not explode into instant stardom. And that was exactly the point. While others chased visibility, Duvall chased truth. He returned to the stage, continued working in television, and accepted roles that demanded patience rather than attention. Anthology series, made-for-TV dramas, supporting parts that most actors would overlook. But Duvall treated every role the same, with meticulous preparation, with respect, with the quiet belief that no performance was ever wasted. Each character became an exercise in observation, how people walk when no one is watching, how they speak when they are unsure, how silence can reveal more than confession. Slowly, directors began to notice something different about him. He didn't overact, he didn't demand focus. Yet somehow, the camera kept finding him. His breakthrough on Broadway with Wait Until Dark signaled that he was no longer just another disciplined actor. He was becoming a presence. Then came the collaborations that would redefine his career. When Francis Ford Coppola cast Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen in The Godfather in 1972, it was a masterstroke. Hagen was not loud, not flashy. He was calm, loyal, and devastatingly intelligent. Duvall understood that power didn't need to announce itself. With minimal dialogue and restrained emotion, he turned Tom Hagen into one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. A man whose quiet authority often carried more weight than violence. The role earned him critical acclaim and cemented his reputation as an actor who elevated every scene he touched. Then came Apocalypse Now in 1979. As Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore, Duvall revealed another side of his artistry, bravado, dark humor, a chilling detachment that felt disturbingly real. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It became one of the most quoted lines in film history. Yet what made the performance unforgettable wasn't the line itself. It was the calm certainty with which Duvall delivered it. Once again, restraint created terror. From there, Duvall's career unfolded like a masterclass in versatility. In The Great Santini, he explored the conflicted psyche of a military father. In Tender Mercies, his Oscar-winning role as Max Sledge revealed fragility, regret, and redemption with breathtaking honesty. He didn't chase sympathy, he let the audience discover it. This was the philosophy Gregory Peck had quietly passed on years earlier. Say less, mean more. Robert Duvall wasn't just acting anymore. He was shaping a legacy. As the years passed, something remarkable became clear. Robert Duvall was not content with comfort. He was not interested in repeating himself. Instead, he pursued range with quiet fearlessness. While many actors became trapped by their most famous roles, Duvall did the opposite. He disappeared into characters that were morally complex, emotionally dangerous, and often deeply uncomfortable. On television, he delivered one of the most chilling performances of his career as Joseph Stalin in the film Stalin. There was no caricature, no theatrical excess, just cold calculation, paranoia, and a terrifying sense of control. Critics were stunned. Not long after, he transformed again, portraying Adolf Eichmann in The Man Who Captured Eichmann. Once more, Duvall resisted spectacle. He chose quiet realism. By refusing to exaggerate evil, he made it more disturbing. This was Duvall's gift. He understood that darkness did not need to shout. As the new millennium arrived, his momentum never slowed. The year 2000 alone showcased his astonishing versatility. Gone in 60 seconds, The Sixth Day, a shot at glory, action, science fiction, intimate drama. He moved between genres with the ease of someone who had spent decades mastering the craft, and still he kept surprising audiences. In Open Range, he brought dignity and restraint to the classic Western. In Gods and Generals, he stepped into historical gravity with solemn authority. In Thank You for Smoking, he sharpened satire with precision and intelligence. No matter the scale of the project, Duvall elevated it. Even smaller films became richer because of his presence. Roles in Get Low, Four Christmases, and 7 Days in Utopia revealed warmth, wisdom, and quiet humanity. He didn't chase relevance. Relevance followed him. Then came 2014. With his role in The Judge, Robert Duvall earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, becoming the oldest nominee ever in that category. The performance was raw, vulnerable, unflinching. It reminded audiences of something they already knew but never took for granted. Greatness doesn't fade when it's built on truth. Even after that milestone, Duvall continued working Wild Horses, In Dubious Battle, Widows. Each role reaffirmed the same reality. Robert Duvall was not just surviving Hollywood. He was defining it. Behind the discipline, the awards, and the iconic performances, Robert Duvall's personal life followed a far more fragile path. Fame did not shield him from loss. Success did not guarantee permanence. Like many artists who give everything to their craft, Duvall's journey through love was marked by devotion, distance, and repeated attempts to build something lasting. His first marriage to Barbara Brent in 1964 came at a time when his career was still finding its footing. Brent lived largely outside the glare of Hollywood, and together they built a private life while Duvall navigated the demanding transition from theater to film. Their marriage lasted 17 years, spanning the most formative period of his rise. During those years, Duvall evolved from a promising actor into a respected presence in Hollywood. Yet the pressures of a growing career, combined with personal differences, slowly took their toll. In 1981, the marriage ended in divorce. Despite the pain, that chapter left its mark. It gave Duvall an understanding of commitment, responsibility, and the emotional cost of ambition. In 1982, he married Gail Youngs, a model and actress, at a time when his professional success was firmly established. The relationship offered companionship and a sense of renewal, but the demands of fame once again proved unforgiving. Their marriage lasted only 4 years, ending in 1986. It was another turning point, another reminder that stability is not easily maintained under constant public pressure. Still, Duvall did not retreat from connection. In 1991, he married Sharon Brophy, a professional woman with interests outside the film industry. The relationship offered grounding, a life away from sets and scripts. Yet even this union, quieter and less public, came to an end in 1995. Each marriage reflected the same pattern: a man deeply committed to partnership, a life constantly disrupted by the demands of his art. Then in 2005, everything changed. Duvall married Luciana Pedraza, an Argentine actress and a filmmaker who shared his passion for the storytelling. For the first time, his personal and creative worlds aligned. Their partnership was built not on escape from his career, but on mutual understanding of it. Together, they embraced a quieter life, splitting time between the United States and Argentina. Less noise, more balance. After decades of searching, Robert Duvall had found something enduring, a love that did not compete with his work, but complemented it. For decades, Robert Duvall rarely spoke publicly about Gregory Peck, not because the memories had faded, but because some influences are so profound that words feel inadequate. To Kill a Mockingbird was the film that launched his career, but for Duvall, it was something far more personal. It was a lesson in character, in responsibility, in what it truly meant to stand for something larger than yourself. When Duvall finally opened up about his experience working alongside Peck, it wasn't with drama or nostalgia, it was with quiet gratitude. He remembered stepping onto that set for the first time, feeling like a young actor still trying to understand his place in the world. And then there was Gregory Peck. Calm, measured, unmovable. Duvall recalled that Peck carried himself with an authority that didn't need reinforcement. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't seek validation. He simply was. According to Duvall, Peck understood the weight of Harper Lee's story in a way few actors could. This was the early 1960s. Racial tensions were at a boiling point. Peck treated the role of Atticus Finch not as a performance, but as a duty. He carried that story like it was sacred, Duvall said. On set, the days were long and emotionally demanding. The themes were heavy, the expectations enormous, yet Peck never wavered. While others grew anxious or restless, Peck remained still and focused. That steadiness became an anchor for everyone around him. Duvall admitted that at first the intensity intimidated him, but soon he realized it came from deep understanding, not pressure. Peck wasn't trying to impress anyone, he was trying to be honest. Even though Duvall's role as Boo Radley was nearly silent, Peck treated him as an equal. He spoke to him with respect. He made sure he felt included. He didn't have to do that, Duvall reflected, but he did, and it mattered. That simple act stayed with him for life. In breaking his long silence, Duvall made one thing clear. Gregory Peck was not just a great actor, he was a gentleman, a moral presence, a standard to live up to. And the shadow he cast was not a burden, it was a gift. Even now, decades later, Robert Duvall speaks of Gregory Peck with unmistakable warmth. There's no bitterness, no regret, only respect. Time, he says, has not softened his admiration. If anything, it has sharpened it. Gregory Peck represented something that feels increasingly rare, a sense of moral clarity, a quiet dignity, a belief that acting was not just about performance, but responsibility. Duvall reflects on how Peck never carried himself like a legend, even though he already was one. There was no ego, no arrogance. He took the work seriously, but never himself. That balance left a permanent impression. Over the years, as Duvall's own career grew into something historic, he often found himself returning to that early lesson, the power of presence, the strength of restraint, the courage to let silence speak. From Tom Hagen to Bill Kilgore, from Max Sledge to countless other unforgettable characters. Each performance carried a trace of that first influence. Gregory Peck taught him that you don't need to dominate a scene to define it. You don't need volume to convey authority, and you don't need constant recognition to leave a lasting impact. In finally breaking his silence, Robert Duvall made something clear. He did not see himself as standing behind Gregory Peck. He saw himself standing beside a standard. I'm grateful I got to start my career standing in his shadow, Duvall said simply, because it was not a shadow of darkness. It was a shadow of integrity, and that shadow followed him for a lifetime, not as a weight, but as a guide.